the programme. It's Phone-in Amnesty. What would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to talk about the Football Lads Alliance March on Saturday from St Paul's to London Bridge Borough Market. The fact that there were so many there, and mainly why there was no media coverage of it whatsoever.
When you say no media coverage, do you mean electronic media or newspapers? Or
nothing. There was no mainstream media. As far as I'm aware, there was just one paragraph in the Times.
Right.
Which is a bit surprising because there was 10,000 people marching on Saturday.
Is that your number or is it an official number?
No, that's my number. But if you want to go on Google or whatever you want to go on, or even YouTube, you'll see 10,000 people marching.
Right.
It was a march against extremism. I spoke to Mel earlier. He mentioned EDL. It was nothing to do with the EDL. It was totally a Football Lads Alliance. It was a group of football supporters from all over the place. There were Spurs, West Ham, Millwall, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, even people from Portsmouth, down from Stoke and places like that. It was all over the country. 10,000 football supporters got together to march against extremists, or mainly to march against what little the government's doing to combat extremism.
And what is your definition of extremism? Or should I say, probably more importantly, what is the Football Lads Alliance definition of extremism? I mean, do you include the EDL as extremist or not?
Well, listen, the EDL was nothing to do with us, but extremists of all types. There was a Sikh commentator who got up and spoke, and even along with all the other people who got up and spoke, condemned all kinds of extremes. They condemned the London Bridge, they condemned Manchester, they condemned Westminster, they condemned Finsbury Park, they condemned it all. But it's more importantly, it's to do with what very little the government are doing to combat extremists. Being tolerant the way they are is obviously not working. We need to have some deterrence.
Well, interestingly, I wonder, because we spoke on the programme a couple of weeks ago, I wonder what your response was when Theresa May said in the wake of the London Bridge Borough Market attack, she said very clearly and plainly, we have been too tolerant of extremism for too long, and that has to change. Did that fill you with some sense of hope that might change?
Well, I don't necessarily believe a lot of things politicians say, but fill me with hope. Yes, it does. I mean, we do need to change. I mean, this Football Lads Alliance group was put together for that reason. Attitudes need to change. The attitude of the British public, I believe, is changing, and they believe it's changing too. But it needs to change in government. We can't, for instance, keep allowing people to go to. It's just because it's topical at the moment. Islamic training camps and then coming back into this country freely. Can't allow people to. This file accounts over 20,000 people on the watch list. You can't allow 20,000 people, whether they're all Islamic or not, I don't know. I mean, obviously they're not, because some are.
Well, 20,000, I think, is the links that they're concerned of that does indeed relate to so-called Islamic extremism. There are obviously others who will be on the watch list to do with animal rights and to do with the far right and anybody else that wishes to do Islam. I think you're right in your first instance. 20,000 was the figure that was associated to Islamic terrorism.
And the thing is to just watch these people ain't good enough. I mean, that's been proven already. I mean, I've no doubt that the authorities and the people that are there to protect us are stopping quite a lot of what supposedly could happen. But we'd like a little bit more done, I believe. We definitely like less tolerance. That is an absolute must. We have to be. We have to, rather than give rewards for information, there has to be penalties for people that withhold information.
Can I ask you a question? Because obviously I've missed much of them, and I know there's marches most weekends in town, which is maybe the reason why not everything is reported. But there's a lot. I'm just scanning through. There's quite a number of newspaper lines about it, and one of the things that I wonder what you feel about is in most newspapers they are linking the EDL and the Football Lads Alliance, which obviously took place at the same time and roughly in the same place.
No, it took place at the same time, deliberately. I mean, there's nothing because.
But whose march was it first? I mean, who was going to be marching first?
It wasn't a march. It was a march at the same time in two totally different places. The idea of having it in two totally different places was so they wouldn't be associated, which is something that a minority of press that has reported has tried to do. it's a separate issue. It's totally nothing to do with the English defence.
No, I know. That's why I was asking you how you feel about it, because on the basis that it happened in the same day, a number of headlines, they talk about the police having imposed quite strict conditions on both sides, on both the Football Lads Alliance and also the EDL march. Is that the way you saw it? Did you feel that you were quite heavy conditions imposed upon you by the police?
Absolutely not. The police were walking alongside. Their helmets were taken off. They walked with their helmets strapped to their legs. They let go of their riot shields and batons and put them back in their vans. They walked alongside all the football supporters that marched peacefully. There was a great camaraderie between the police and the football supporters. No trouble at all between anybody. Any football supporters from all different clubs got along well, clapped and cheered each other. There was wreaths laid at London Bridge. It was it couldn't have gone more perfectly.
So make it clear to the papers. Make it clear to the papers who've got this wrong. So you would suggest that the Football Lads Alliance, because that is three words together that most of our listeners probably wouldn't have heard of before. So it's important.
No, it was only formed less than 3 weeks ago.
That's the reason why then.
This is why I'm totally smacked that 10,000 people could turn up after just 3 weeks' notice. It's unbelievable, and that's why I can't believe the press never got hold.
Well, the Times reported. The reason why I'm asking is the Times reported it as hundreds of football fans rather than thousands.
They obviously went to the EDL march.
The EDL we were told was about 50 in the same paper.
But don't you find that surprising? Then you've got 50 people at EDL march splashed all over the newspapers and the television. 10,000 people marching less than 3 miles.
That's why I think it's important to. I mean, in a sense, let's not trade figures, because I'm just telling you what the papers say. You're telling me it was 10,000, but we neither of us know the actual true figure. But in terms of what you stand for, would you say that the Football Lads Alliance and the EDL are basically at completely separate ends?
Absolutely.
Of the spectrum.
I
know you're separate organisations, but what I'm saying is in terms of what you believe.
What do I believe?
No, I'm saying in terms of what you believe, you are the furthest apart you can be. So you are. So that the fact that the papers are linking you is completely erroneous, and we shouldn't gauge anything from that.
We shouldn't gauge anything at all from that. It was nothing to do with the EDL whatsoever. Nothing at all. In fact, the people that organised it were just ordinary football supporters. They're not. I don't think that. I mean, I'm not an organiser. I was just attending. But there was nothing other than to end extremism. There was nothing political about it. As I said, there was speakers from ethnic minorities speaking before the march. You know, you wouldn't get speakers from ethnic minorities speaking at an EDL meeting, would you?
And would you say it's quite interesting looking at I'm just looking at all the mentions of Football Lads Alliance on Twitter by both supporters and detractors, and what seems to be the case. I mean, here's one. I just wonder. I'm trying to work out political. I know you're saying it's apolitical, but often there is always a political aspect to it. Are you? Because here's one that is really supportive of again quoting that 10,000 figure, 10,000 working class men who've had enough, and that this person's attack is on what he describes as lefty parasites. So would you say you are to the right politically, or are you to the left? I mean, would you be more likely to vote Conservative than Labour, or Labour than Conservative? Where politically are most of your? Well, I was thinking of most of the followers of the Football Lads Alliance.
I couldn't say it's a totally across the board mixture. There's people from all ethnics. I mean, obviously there's Jewish people. There was Sikh people. There's English people. There's people from I don't know what their political background was. The political background of all them people was totally irrelevant. They all had one cause, and that was to put an end to extremism, or to force the government to try and put an end to extremism.
I've just seen a picture that certainly shows to me more than a couple of hundred people.
Yeah.
The picture I can see a picture of I don't know where this is. I mean, certainly in the heart of London.
Cannon Street.
It certainly looks like the city. And unless it's something that is that picture does suggest that what you're saying, it's more likely to be the case that you're saying rather than some of the other numbers. Do you think there has been some conspiracy that this hasn't been covered, or do you think it's just a lack of awareness by the media?
I mean, it wasn't a lack of awareness. There was I'm only estimating like 500 or 600 police there. There was helicopters up in the air. There was it was not a secret that it was happening. You know what I mean? It was always going to happen. It'd been organised for weeks. And the press knew about it. I think there was a deliberate attempt to just try and ignore it. I don't know why the press. I mean, obviously, you know, I could start accusing the press of being left wing and this, that, and the other, but I'm not going to do that. I just want to take this opportunity to get this point across. It hasn't been in any mainstream media at all. This is the first opportunity that I've heard anyone have to get on the radio or the television or the newspapers and say something. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of the organisers and couldn't be. You know, they might have been able to put the point across a little bit better than me. I don't know, but I just thought, as you do an open.
No, I'm very glad you have.
I thought I'd give it a chance. I'm sure there's people listening that would if they are listening, there's surely people that can confirm what
I will admit to you that, you know, I, like many other people here, do nothing but follow the news. I read the papers, I look at Twitter, I see what's going on. I mean, on Saturday I was stuck in here and then I left London, so I didn't see it. And it's unusual for me to admit it, so I'm glad you've raised the point this morning. And, you know, if you are saying, and I'm hearing what you're saying, that you are a peaceful organisation that is against extremism of all sides, you're kind of apolitical. It sounds like you are, based on what you believe and what some of the other people on there believe politically. And actually what it sounds like is, you know, if I was going to put it in a very short sentence, football supporters marching for peace. And I would say that I don't believe you will be hidden from the media. I think
there's another march. There's another march due in October. I'm sure that if the BBC if someone from your programme would get in touch with the Football Lads Alliance.
If anybody ever wants to come on, everything in its merits, and you know, I think that it's very clear that the BBC would not be supporting one over another. But if it's editorially justifiable, then please come on, because
I'm sure it will be, because I'm sure this won't just happen in London. I mean, this is going to follow on. If it's a Football Lads Alliance and it's all football lads getting together, and I say lads, I mean, I think the average age is probably about 50.
Yeah, but there's also loads of women as well who've been posting on it too, so it's lads and lasses too.
No. Yeah, there's everything, and I think it will just expand, and you know, you need something, you need a core to centralise people, and I think football supporters, you know, if they get together, would be a massive number. And the core of it will only make it a bit bigger number as it goes on throughout the country.
I'm going to leave it there. Many thanks for the call, though. 0207 224 2000 is our number.